there's a major economic crash in the offing? That's what we'll talk about today. You know, Harry Truman once said he wanted a one-handed economist, because economists were always saying on the one hand and then on the other hand. And John Kenneth Galbraith said economic prediction is the only thing that makes astrology respectable. But given those caveats, the Federal Reserve Board says that things are great, they're going to be improving, the economy's picking up, and that we might even in the future be able to dispense with the monthly economic stimulus of, in effect, printing $85 billion of new money. But there's a dissenting voice that's emerging from a friend of mine named James Fitzgibbons, who is the head of the Highlander Fund, one of the hedge funds. And Fitzgibbons has had a remarkably accurate record of tracking economic changes over the years. He predicted the internet bubble and came within a month of predicting the date of the Lehman Brothers failure and the TARP situation. And in Japan has been quite accurate, and you never know if a guy like that will be right or wrong, and I'm just passing it on to you for your consideration. He says that he believes that this process of printing money has created a situation and free capital where banks and investment houses can get it at 0% interest rate, has created an incentive to speculation for one of the all-time greatest booms without any real economic substance behind it. And he says that he feels that this has overextended to a point where the big players are pulling back, and that's what caused the contraction of 530 points on Wednesday and Thursday of last week. And on Friday it just gained back 40. It didn't make up the difference. Now, that's sharply at opposite from the Federal Reserve's point of view, which is the economy is recovering and the stock market run-up was a symptom, is a symptom of that, and the fall-off was just an aberrant action. Now, Fitzgibbons says that he believes that any time the big players, and he points out that the volume in the stock market is way down, so it's dominated by the big players, that any time they feel that the price has gone to a point where it's way out of sync with the value, that they will then pull out and there'll suddenly be a crash. And he says that that pullout has begun. He says that what he expects to happen is for there to be a run-up of stock prices over the next couple of weeks, ending in the early part of August, which he says will be kind of a profit-taking run up the price and then jump out, and that the big boys and their favored customers will jump out, leaving the rest of us to hold the bag. And from then on, whereas the Fed is predicting a steady increase in prosperity, he is predicting a 20% fall in the Dow, 3,000 points by the end of the year. And whereas Obama and his team seem confident about the economy, he says that that will trigger a recession in the U.S., combined with the recession in Europe that's now taken place, and the horribly decreased growth in China, perhaps a recession that we're not being told about, will cause a global recession, or depression really, throughout 14, 15, and he believes the bottom won't be reached till 16. He says, and in this he's joined by David Stockman in his book, The Great Deformation, Stockman's Reagan's former budget director, that the derivative bets are so extensive, 1.4 quadrillion, that they dwarf the GDP of the planet Earth, which is 70 trillion. And that when those bets begin to come due and begin to fail, it'll be beyond the capability of the central banks worldwide to arrest that or to alleviate it like they did with TARP. And he says that this then will be a real Great Depression. And his phrase, just passing it on to you, is that it will be a downturn of biblical proportions. So I'm bringing this to you really as a public service. I'm not an economist. Sure, I'm not an investment advisor. But when one of the people I rely on for input gives me this kind of information, I really feel obliged to pass it on.